This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. I'm here to ask you for your support. Finding honest Native-centered news is not easy, but with your support, we're able to provide accurate information about Standing Rock, Line 3, treaty violations, and COVID-19 in our Native communities. Please visit Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon and donate if you can. That's Native Roots Radio Network on Patreon. Pinigigi, and thank you for your support.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis invites you to experience Unti Said So, a powerful new exhibition by Daniel C. Walker rooted in Native storytelling, collective identity, and community. Join us for the opening reception Friday, April 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Through bold portraits and vibrant color, this work reflects generational knowledge, teachings passed down, and the significance of grandmothers in Native culture, reminding us that sovereignty begins at home. Plan your visit today at allmyrelationsarts.org.
Aho, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center, local artist Rosie Simas, Seneca Nation of Indians, Huron Clan, embodies Onondaga philosophies of peacemaking and relationality in new immersive installation. Visit Agay-Jagwa Destiny Gowaweni. I hope it'll stir your mind and explore a space built for communal rest and contemplation. Simas presents a performance of the same name this May. Learn more about the exhibition and performance at walkerart.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, clearing skies with a low of 33, then Thursday, cloudy with a high of 51. Get your exquisite, elegant box of French macarons from Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth. Nicolette's is conveniently located off Highway 169 and 36th Avenue. Stop in at the store or order your box online at nicolettesmacarons.com.
Portions of Native Roots Radio may be pre-recorded.
It's a good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Because all the hippies are trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake. Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in forward directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is presented in partnership with the city of Minneapolis, Minneapolis AIR, American Indian Relations, whose monthly host a conversation on the second Wednesday of the month regarding happenings that impact our Native communities in Minneapolis. We are grateful for this partnership and to keep up to date on topics that can better support our largest urban Indian population in the country. I'm going to pass things over to Minneapolis AIR American Indian Community Specialist and guest host Christine McDonald. Oh, wow. Take it away.
Thank you, Robert. Bonjour, Ogadaki Gabuit Nindijnakas Ajijak Nundundem. I am Christine McDonald. I'm the American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis, and I'm your host tonight for Minneapolis AIR. Today, we are excited to welcome Hennepin County Sheriff Dawanna Witt. Thank you for joining us on Minneapolis AIR.
Thank you for
having me. Can you share? Thank you. So let's just jump right into it. Can you share a little bit about yourself and then your work?
Sure. Well, my name is Dawanna Witt. I actually grew up in South Minneapolis. I'm a graduate of South High School. Here at the Sheriff's Office, I was elected in 2022, taking office in January of 2023. I am the first woman and the first person of color to ever hold this position for this office. And, a little bit about me is I'm a huge Vikings fan. I love sports. And, even more than that, I love my family. I am a wife. I have 2 adult daughters and 3 beautiful grandkids. And that's about me. And I always tell people that when people say, tell us about yourself, you're more than work, you're more than school. Who are you? And so I like to add those personal touches.
Yeah. I love hearing you're from Southside. I'm Southside too, was at Roosevelt. So what are some of the biggest things that your office is working on right now?
Well, thank you for that question. So we continue to fight violent crime. We use our task forces, our patrol divisions to do that. And, when I'm talking about our task forces, it does include partnerships with our local law enforcement agencies, such as the Minneapolis Police Department and things like that. But, we've had a lot going on here in the city for quite some time now. But, something I want to remind people is that there's still criminal activity going on. When I think about our stats just year to date, thus far this year, 74 illegal or illegally possessed guns were confiscated, 22 pounds of fentanyl powder and 55 pounds of meth taken off of the streets. And then again, just this year, recovering 172 vehicles that were stolen. We're busy.
Yeah. I saw something about National Prescription Drug Take Back Day.
Yes.
That's something that you guys, what is that?
So that is something that we do in partnership with other organizations too. But the ideal about that is, having medications in your home that you're not using, that you no longer need. We want to rid of those in a safe manner. So, when we host that event, we ask people to come to some of our local stores. Sometimes it'd be a Cub Foods, a Walmart, or a Walgreens, or something like that, so that we could safely discard those meds. Something that we do know from just stats and history is that when people have access to medications that don't belong to them, it's harming them, it's harming the families, it's harming the communities. And we also like to educate people that it's not always great to put those things down the drain or the toilet.
Yeah.
It ends up in our water supply. So we offer drug take back so that we can safely rid people's homes of those medications that they no longer need or expired.
So is that one time a year, or do you do that multiple times a year? And
we do it twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall.
Okay, so there's more than one opportunity. So if we miss this one, we have another fall opportunity to turn those prescription drugs in.
Yes.
Thank you. And how does your office work with the Native community?
Oh my goodness. Well, we do a little bit of everything. One of the things that I try to pride myself in is to never pretend that I know what our communities need. And that includes our Native community. So always being active at community events so people can tell us what are their needs, how can we help them? I always like to tell people that, law enforcement is one entity of what we do, but we're truly about public safety. So it's not just about locking people up, enforcing laws, but it's truly about being a part of the community. We offer resources, we donated weather gear to Native organizations. We've also connected our detectives with community members to help fight some of the crime that our Native community are seeing right outside their own windows and business places. So, I feel like we are very well connected. And again, I never assume that we know what it is that the community needs. And so we are there so people can feel comfortable with telling us what are their needs, what are their wants, how can we make sure that we're all living together better and safer.
Mm-hmm. I do know you guys have like an engagement team. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your engagement team, what they're called and what they do?
Yes. So we have a community engagement team. And one of the things that I'm proud about that engagement team is, we've been through a lot again here in Minnesota these last 6 years. And one of the things that is very clear is people want police, but they want good police. Well, to do that, to build sustainable relationships and to be engaged, you need to make sure that your agency is proactive. So like for our community engagement team, They're out in the community all the time, building those relationships, sustainable relationships, attending community events, because it's very important for me that people have people that they can trust within public safety agencies such as our own. When we are just responding after things happen or when something bad happens, it is very hard to gain trust, respect, when we're just responding. So it is very important to have something like a community engagement team, because they're proactive and they're building those relationships, which is much needed when we're talking about community and public safety agencies.
How long has the sheriff's office had a community engagement team?
Oh, now that's a good question, because actually it was before I came back in 2019. I'm not sure how long we've had one, but one of the things I can tell you is, since being the sheriff, it's something that I've been trying to increase, because it is needed. They are so busy. I think last year they had over 500 community events that they attended. It is something that I want to focus on building out, because we're needed. And I think I know that the community is really appreciating their presence. So,
absolutely, I think knowing that you've had an engagement team since before 2019, I think it says that you guys have had a commitment to engaging with community, and you've maintained it. You've kept that department, and I think that's important. So what are some of the successes that you've had in Hennepin County recently?
Well, one of the big successes, which I think is really important for the community to know about, is that we really advocated for the 1115 waiver to be here in Minnesota. And some people are saying, well, what is the 1115 waiver? Well, let's start with the jail. I often tell people that the people that we have in our custody are still our community members. We have to make sure that we take care of them, give them the best care that is possible. So what the 1115 waiver does is it's Minnesota applying for Medicaid service to allow for Medicaid billing to occur in Minnesota jails. See, some of the things that we see is when people come into jail and then they're cut off from medical services, when you think about that release, well, and if they're going to like treatment or receiving some kind of other help, now they have to reapply for those things. This 1115 waiver kind of helps with that continuation. And, right now when Medicare recipients are booked into the jail and that coverage is turned off, this is going to build that bridge so that they don't have to reapply to get those services that we know that they need. In addition, it's a huge cost savings for taxpayers and allows us the opportunities to enhance health and public safety outcomes inside of our jail on that premise that the people in our jail are still part of our communities.
That's awesome.
Hey.
Thank you.
You know what? We're going to be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Oh, wow. We'll be right back.
All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis invites you to experience Unchi Said So, a powerful new exhibition by Daniel C. Walker rooted in Native storytelling, collective identity, and community. Join us for the opening reception Friday, April 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Through bold portraits and vibrant color, this work reflects generational knowledge, teachings passed down, and the significance of grandmothers in Native culture, reminding us that sovereignty begins at home. Plan your visit today at allmyrelationsarts.org.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center, an art space that's more than the spoon and cherry. Galleries celebrate contemporary visual art, including indigenous artists like Edgar Heap of Birds from the Cheyenne and Arapaho nations, and Jim Deminy from the Ojibwe Nation. Additionally, film screens, cinema, and performances are shown on stage. And the Walker is free every Thursday night and free every day for citizens and members of tribal nations. Learn more at walkerart.org.
We are your relatives,
We are your relations,
brothers,
sisters,
sons.
daughters,
And some of us are your grandchildren.
We are your community. Historically, we held places of honor and respect. Because of the impact of colonization, some of us are rejected, thrown out from family, friends, and community, set up as targets for sexual violence, sex trafficked, humiliated, tortured, and murdered. Everybody has the right to be safe. We are your relatives. Remember,
Homophobia is not traditional.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis Air dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and I want to be your next United States Senator, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis with Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Ho up.
Thank you. Welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis and your host for Minneapolis Air. This evening, we are joined by Hennepin County Sheriff Dawanna Witt. And right before the break, we were talking about some of your successes that you've had in Hennepin County recently.
Yes. And thanks again for having me. Something else I think it's really important for people to know is like we did develop a Hennepin County Auto Theft Task Force, which is us as well as several of our local suburban agencies. But in just 1 week, that task force, they recovered 18 stolen vehicles. They arrested 8 individuals for stealing those vehicles and removed 2 illegally possessed firearms from our streets while assisting Minneapolis 4th Precinct's community response team. Those collaborations and that work is so important. But then to top it off, you know, with our West Metro Drug Task Force, who have had a lot of success removing illegal narcotics from the streets. And I think we can all agree that is something that is needed so much as we've seen what these illegal narcotics are doing to our family members, our loved ones in our communities. But just last week, this task force did an operation that seized 1 pound of meth, 3.5 kilos of cocaine, and several guns. In February, I spoke at a press conference at the U.S. Attorney's Office on criminal investigation that our team was a part of that yielded huge results, such as 14 pounds of cocaine, nearly 7 pounds of cocaine, 14 firearms, and again, the arrest of suspected gang members. The work is so important, and those things are so successful. And again, we don't need any more harm to our community, so it will always be a priority of mine to get these illegally possessed guns and these drugs that are killing our communities off of our street.
Yeah. I don't know, like, if our listeners follow your office on Facebook, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, but one of the things that I really appreciate that your office does is, I don't know if they do it after every big bust, but I see on your page often enough, like the impact of your work. Like, I think it's so important that you're able to show like a visual picture of like the pile of the pills, the guns that you've gotten, because there's just so many times that you get in conversations with people and they feel like law enforcement isn't doing anything to combat these issues. And I know I just appreciate seeing those visual pictures to be able to see what things have happened, what you've been able to take off of the streets that we have. So thank you for that. And I hope you continue to do that part. Then something that kind of touches on what you were bringing up about the Medicaid stuff. I've heard that a lot of people who have been booked into Hennepin County Jail have already coming in with addiction or substance use disorder. And I'm just wondering, what kind of services does the jail have in these cases?
Yes, so we estimate that between 40 to 50% of our jail population has some history of substance use disorder, you know, and that includes everything from illicit drugs, alcohol, opioids, and things like that. We offer medication for opioid use disorder, as well as resources and programs for those who want them. Roughly 20% of our jail population is on Suboxone, which is a medication for opioid use disorder. We are offering a new medication called I can never say this word right, Sublocade in the jail. And this is exclusive to the Native American population because of a grant we had received. But, you know, this drug, it works a lot like the Suboxone, but it only requires an injection that will cover an individual for 30 days as opposed to Suboxone, which requires daily pills.
Nice.
We also offer peer support services via the Native American Community Clinic for Native American people with substance use disorder in the jail. And these peers, they will help connect our detainees to services when they are released. We're trying to look more at the holistic issue here. When we release people, we know that they are going back to their communities, and we have to give them the resources they need to be successful in being healthy and abstaining from those things. So it's something that's always been important to me, and we will continue to do it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I didn't know you had that. I can't say the word either, but that once a month is so much easier than the having to come back either daily or even weekly. And I hope that brings a lot of success in people in their recovery.
Well, you know, something else that we know about that too is like you have to offer these things because when people are locked up and if when they release back to their communities, you know, their tolerance went down while they had been incarcerated. And what we've seen is a correlation of people who will suffer overdose and sometimes die because they think that they need the same amount that they used previous to being incarcerated.
Right. I didn't know that you guys had that partnership with like the Native American clinic, so that's really cool to hear. So then another thing that I wanted to touch on a little bit was there's a lot of misinformation out in communities. I'm just wondering, how does Hennepin County work or not work with federal agencies?
Well, I am very happy you asked that question because there is a lot of misinformation out there. Our office works with local, state, and federal agencies on criminal investigations. And I want to say that again, criminal investigations and to enforce criminal laws. That includes cases such as narcotics, human trafficking, assault, murder, and so much more. I want to be clear that we do not work with any agency regarding civil immigration enforcement. That means we do not assist with or comply with any civil immigration requests from ICE. In our jail, we do not honor administrative detainers. These documents are not criminal warrants signed by a judge. You know, and I can say that Hennepin County Sheriff's Office will only comply with judicially signed warrants. And, you know, our policies have not changed since I've taken office. I held fast on that. We did document them on our website so people can go see at hennepinsheriff.org about what we do and see what it is that we do and do not do.
I also heard you were named in a lawsuit.
Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, there are people that have been saying, you know, that I have been cooperating. Well, you know, there's 87 sheriffs in Minnesota, yet I'm the only sheriff in Minnesota that's been sued by the DOJ because I do not cooperate with ICE. And I think that's very important for people to know, you know, and I'm very open to explaining to people what we do and why we're doing stuff. But again, I have the DOJ who named me in this lawsuit out of 87 sheriffs because I do not cooperate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like I said, there's a lot of misinformation. On one hand, you hear how, oh, they're working with ICE, but yet you're being sued for not working with ICE. And then on the other hand, people are saying, well, you should have been working with ICE and the whole surge would have been over. So it's like each side are saying totally different things. And so it's a lot of misinformation.
Well, because even in that lawsuit where it said that I am treating them different than I would other law enforcement agencies, when actually what I'm doing is I'm being consistent. There's no other law enforcement agency that can ask us to hold on to somebody for them longer than they're supposed to be held on and without having a warrant. And so it's consistency.
Right. And I think another thing people aren't aware of, some of the conversation that I've gotten in is that ICE has always been around. It was just the numbers and the tactics that they use. So they've there was like a detention. Is it in Bloomington?
Yes.
Outside of the Whipple, where they had people.
Actually considered unincorporated territory, which is why it is the sheriff's office primary patrol area. So you know, it's not technically Minneapolis or Bloomington or Richfield's issue or anything like that. That has always been the sheriff's office because that's our primary patrol area.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today?
Well, you know, I would like to tell your audience that, you know, it's again, I'm running for sheriff again, and I hope that I could have the conversations with people, because I do want to be the best sheriff to all communities. And I'm really open to your questions. I would really like to dissolve any inaccuracies that are out there.
Thank you. One other thing, I heard that there was a big basketball tournament coming up.
Oh, yeah. So, it's called Ballin in DC, Dakota County, where it's first responders that are competing in a basketball tournament. It happens every year. And last year, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office won the tournament. And so that traveling trophy is here in Hennepin County. And we're going to be in here and hopefully bringing it back to this side of the river again.
Amazing. When did you say that is? And where?
That is April. Let me look at my calendar here. April 18th.
April 18th.
Yep. At
is that open for people to come and cheer you guys on?
Yes.
How many different agencies?
Oh, goodness. I think there's 16 agencies.
16 agencies. Okay. All right. And you're going to take a second year repeat.
I'm going to be the best cheerleader out there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, right on. Hey, we'll be right back. You're listening to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio. Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Did you know that the Walker has a cinema that shows film almost every week? From artist talks, genre-defined performances, and world premieres to archival shorts and experimental soundscapes, the Walker Cinema explores all modes of global and local filmmaking. Get your first tickets for free. Visit walkerart.org/cinema to learn more. That's walkerart.org/cinema. See you at the movies. Hey, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. For a meal that feeds your soul and health, check out Gatherings Cafe. Located in the renovative Minneapolis American Indian Center, Executive Chef Vernon Defoe and team serve up incredible indigenous flavors. Gatherings Cafe has amazing bison tacos featuring lean protein from native wise, corn tortillas, and homemade sides. It's fresh, local food rooted in ancestral knowledge. Stop by for breakfast or lunch. That's Gatherings Cafe, where tradition meets innovation. I heard sex trafficking happens a lot in Indian country. What is that?
Here are some of the real reasons why sex trafficking happens in
Somebody
Indian country.
says she should be the sheriff of the year.
By colonization. Communities don't have enough resources. Silence around domestic and sexual violence. Lack of attention and justice for missing and murdered indigenous people. A lot of behavior that keeps our communities out of balance. These are just a few true reasons why Native communities are targeted by traffickers. When these acts of violence happen in our community, it opens us all up for exploitation.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center.
I think it's on Facebook then.
Seneca Nation of Indians, Huron Clan, embodies Onondaga philosophies of peacemaking and relationality in new immersive installation. Visit Agajangwa, Destiny Gowe Wane. I hope it'll stir your mind and explore a space built for communal rest and contemplation. Seamus presents a performance of the same name this May. Learn more about the exhibition and performance at walkerart.org.
All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis invites you to experience When She Said So, a powerful new exhibition by Danielle C. Walker, rooted in Native storytelling, collective identity, and community. Join us for the opening reception Friday, April 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Through bold portraits and vibrant color, this work reflects generational knowledge, teachings passed down, and the significance of grandmothers in Native culture, reminding us that sovereignty begins at home. Plan your visit today at allmyrelationsarts.org.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
Oh, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives, healing is more than just sobriety. It's reclaiming Indigenous masculinity as a sacred, balanced force. Join Hunter Thundercloud for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. We explore how personal recovery uplifts our communities. It's time men step back into roles as mentors and spiritual leaders. Recovery is collective, and it starts with us. Tune in the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Controlled Fire. Let's tend the fire together.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, clearing skies with a low of 33, then Thursday, cloudy with a high of 51. Support comes from Hennepin Arts, presenting the Tony Award-winning musical Suffs about the brilliant, passionate, and funny American woman who fought tirelessly for the right to vote. Playing April 7th through 12th at the Orpheum Theater. Tickets and more information at hennepinarts.org.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis for Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. Here's our guest host, Christine McDonald. Oh, wow.
Thank you. Welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis, and your host for Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And next we welcome Todd Barnette, who is the City of Minneapolis Commissioner of Community Safety. Thank you for joining us on Minneapolis Air, Todd.
Oh, thank you for having me. For your listeners, I've known Sheriff Witt before she became the sheriff, and it's just great to hear her talk about the things that she's doing. And also, she being the only sheriff that's been sued, you have to wonder why. And I think one of those reasons is because she was so outspoken doing Operation Metro Surge. So.
Yeah, I just think it's wild for one hand for her to be accused of working with federal agents, and then on the other, she's the only sheriff in the state named in this lawsuit.
Right. And she was so outspoken to help community, and now she's sued. So hopefully at some point that lawsuit gets dismissed.
Yeah, I hope so. Unfounded. So welcome, and let's go right into it. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at the Office of Community Safety?
Sure. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I consider myself now a Minnesotan because I've been here since 1989 when I started law school at the University of Minnesota. From there, I was a public defender for 15 years, a prosecutor for 2. I was a judge for 17 years in Hennepin County. And part of my, before I came and took on this position, I was the chief judge in Hennepin County. So that's sort of my career. I got 2 kids. One's 23 and actually in law school. Her first year, she was the one that would tell everybody when they asked her what did she want to be when she grew up, she said not what my parents do, because my wife is also an attorney, and then I have a son who's a junior at Gus Davis.
Well, I just want to put it out there that I'm really grateful for you and your time as head judge, because you swore in my aunt, Judge Yellowhammer with Hennepin County. So thank you for that, doing that work.
I'm glad you said that, because one thing I don't want to forget to say on your show, we need diversity in the city of Minneapolis, any department, not just community safety, all of our departments. If you're looking for a job, please consider the city of Minneapolis. We need more diversity. We especially need more Native people in our departments. So
absolutely, we need the people making the decisions for us who understand our communities. We had Robert Lilligren when he was Minneapolis City Council member. Of course, he had an affinity for his own community, and he looked
Yeah.
out and was a champion for us. And it really does matter because the amount of focus has shifted ever since he was now that he's not been on council for a number of years. So representation matters 100%.
It does.
Mhm.
And you know, our fire department has the first Native American crew. They've been highlighted in the news. I'm sure you can find it somewhere on the internet. It's sad that we've gone this far in the fire department's history to have a Native American crew, but it's so fantastic if you ever get a chance to look and see the story that they did on those young men.
Yeah. Well, since you brought up the fire department, little fact about me and my family, my aunt was one of the first Native female firefighters for Minneapolis Fire.
Oh,
She
that's
was
fantastic.
I think it was around 91, 92, something like
Right.
that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So she
Great.
was one of the first. So that was amazing. I'm proud of that and proud of her. So can you tell us a little bit about the work of the Office of Community Safety?
Yeah, so you know that I think it was in 21, 22, there's a new government structure. And you know, this is a result of what happened in 2020 with the murder of George Floyd and the unrest that we had in the city of Minneapolis. So they created the Office of Community Safety. And so they created 5 departments in this office: police, fire, 911, emergency management, and neighborhood safety. And so the idea was, when you look back at what happened in 2020 and the after action reports, all of these departments were siloed. They were not working together. So the idea is to bring these departments together, to break down these silos so that they collaborate and have coordination. But I would say, from my very first few days here, I think, and most of the people in your audience, your listeners will know, is that community safety is just not in these departments. And so, you know, when I first started, I was at a community event. Someone said, "Hey, my street lights are out." And no one at fire could take care of the street lights, no police officers. So I had to reach out to our COO, Margaret Anderson Kelleher, to get Public Works to replace the bulb. So it actually takes all of our city departments to address community safety. But one of the big things that we're working on, I think that everybody knows, is that there is the Minnesota Human Rights Department settlement agreement. And we're also going to follow the consent decree provisions, even though they've been dismissed. So as we are complying and implementing those things, there's also a report that came out, I think 2022, 2023, called the Minneapolis Safe and Thriving Community Report. And so that is the roadmap for us to bring a unified, holistic approach to community safety. So, like the sheriff talked about what they're doing in the jail with those folks who might have an addiction to drugs, that is fantastic. They're looking at a more holistic approach, and that's how the city of Minneapolis is looking. So we really want to sustain our community safety reform once that consent decree, the settlement agreement is complied with and then gone. We want to make sure that we have all these things in place that are happening, so we have the right service at the right time for our residents and visitors.
So how would you describe the overall impact of Operation Metro Surge on Minneapolis?
Christine, where do I start? Well, let's say, because the sheriff started talking a little bit about it. So from a so let's look at like 3 things. From one place, think about communications, because the federal government initially said they were coming here for fraud. And I think your listeners would say, okay, how many, I didn't see them prosecute a bunch of fraud cases while they were here. So one of the first things the city did was make sure that we're communicating out what the actual facts were. So you have to imagine that for the city, all hands were on deck when Metro Surge was here. And so people's time off was being canceled, vacations were being canceled. Everybody's working hard. We had over 3,000 federal agents here. So communication-wise, we wanted to get out information from our website and other things. At the same time, from a legal aspect, we sued the Trump administration, and we were making sure that we were protecting our citizens' rights, because the tactics that were being used by the federal government were ones of intimidation, a lot of physical force. We saw people get killed and other people get injured. It's unimaginable, because what happened to Minneapolis did not happen to any other city in the United States. And so people weren't going to work, people weren't going to businesses. So there was an economic impact. There was trauma in our communities because of the fear of going places and being snatched out of your car, being places of worship where they were patrolling. They're going to schools and things like that. Just the overall impact has been great for us. At one point during Metro Surge, I think for businesses, we were losing about, I think, 10 million, a week in just business. The police department, had people working overtime. And I think for the first month or two, we probably spent about $6 million in overtime. But the overall impact was not as great on our staff, although it was an enormous amount of impact. But the impact that it had to the community is what we're really going to have to look at as we move on, because just the long-term trauma is going to be something we need to address for both our employees and the community.
Right. I think there's a lot of ways that we can get information on the overall impact on community too. I sit on 2 board of directors for 2 nonprofit organizations in my community, and on one of those, I'm going to ask the other one too. It was like, can you give us a brief update on how that has impacted this organization as far as clients that we've served, programming that was interrupted or pivoted to service the community, and employees as well? Because it's an overall impact. I know myself, I worked for like in a few weeks there, I was spending time in my community. We had like a hub for patrollers. And so I was there Monday through Sunday. And part of that is that's where I felt safe. It felt safe in numbers. The other thing that you mentioned was there were at least 3,000 federal agents here, at least. And that is more than all of the local law enforcement agencies combined. That's a lot of soldiers. They weren't soldiers. I was going to say, I asked one of my friends, like when they were deployed, how many were in their unit? And they said about 1,200. So it's even more than people who get deployed to war areas.
Right. And to a lot, what people describe it as an invasion, because of the number of people.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll keep talking about this same question when we get back from break.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Hey, we'll be right back. This is Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis Air. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis Air dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis Air on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
This is Chase Iron Eyes announcing a new show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, powered by Native Roots Radio. The show is called Native American Patriot Talk Radio. What will we do on the show? We are going to explore and dive into the source of American constitutional sovereignty, the intersection of Native American and legal issues. Find us the first and third Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. on AM 950.
Support comes from the Walker Arts Center. Did you know that the Walker has a cinema that shows film almost every week? From artist talks, genre-defined performances, and world premieres to archival shorts and experimental soundscapes, the Walker Cinema explores all modes of global and local filmmaking. Get your first tickets for free. Visit walkerart.org/cinema to learn more. That's walkerart.org/cinema. See you at the movies. Hey, it's Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio. For a meal that feeds your soul and health, check out Gatherings Cafe. Located in the renovative Minneapolis American Indian Center, Executive Chef Vernon Defoe and team serve up incredible indigenous flavors. Gatherings Cafe has amazing bison tacos featuring lean protein from native wise, corn tortillas, and homemade sides. It's fresh, local food rooted in ancestral knowledge. Stop by for breakfast or lunch. That's Gatherings Cafe, where tradition meets innovation.
Hi, it's Dr. Evan Adams, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio. Hey, Victor, you better be listening.
In this portion of the show, we'd like to bring awareness to our wolf and bear populations throughout Turtle Island. Say no to the hunts.
Hey, this episode is supported by the City of Minneapolis, Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And here's our guest host, Christine McDonald.
Thank you, Robert. Welcome back. I'm Christine McDonald, American Indian Community Specialist with the City of Minneapolis, and your guest host on Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. And coming back into this last segment, we return with Commissioner Todd Barnette, who is the head of the Minneapolis Safety Department, Community Safety Department. See, yes. It's a new department, and I still can't quite get it out right. But it was well needed, and I'm glad to have you on with us tonight. Before we took a break, we were talking about the overall impact of Operation Metro Surge that it had within the city as an enterprise and the city as a whole community. There were some things that were, I think, noticeable, and that was like the effect that it also had on crime.
One of the reasons that federal government said they were coming here was because of the crime in the city of Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And that was not the truth. Overall, crime was down for us. As of today, we have, as far as shots fired, calls that we get, we're probably down about 11%. We're down 31% year to date as far as gunshot wound victims. In carjackings are down. Although I am concerned about the number of car thefts that are happening and the number of property damage that we're having to cars. And so we're, as MPD is working to try to really identify folks and really stop that from happening. But overall, we're in a good place when we look at our crime statistics.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything more that you wanted to share with the audience about the impact? I think we talked a little bit about the size of, or the number of agents that were actually here.
Not really. I just think one of the tough things when we look at the economic impact, and you heard Sheriff Witt talk, and you talk about the fact that we've always had federal immigration enforcement in our city. We didn't have those tactics as before being used, where they were escalating things and not de-escalating like our MPD officers do. But the thing now is trying to revitalize our businesses. I think that's going to be tough as we move along because people are still feeling intimidated about going out. But one of the great things that happened, you talked about your patrols, is that a lot of our citizens, not just Minneapolis itself, but from other cities came in to really help people get groceries, walk kids to school. And so although that we have to worry about the economic impact and the psychological impact, you can look at how our surrounding neighbors came out to help our residents get what they need as well.
Yeah, I think we'd be remiss on my show to not bring up the impact that it had on the American Indian community. I don't think that enough people understand. I don't believe it was accidental. I myself do not believe that it was mistaken identity. I think it may have had some because we're brown people, but at the same time, I think back to this president's first year in office. So in 2025, in January of 2025, when they started doing more immigration work, they were actually down detaining citizens of the Navajo Nation. So I just feel that it wasn't accidental, and it didn't feel accidental. But I think that like one of the things that was amazing was the way that the community showed up for each other, the way that our tribes showed up in ways that never happened before. Usually our folks have to go back to the reservations to get like tribal IDs, because that was one of the recommendations, was that we start carrying our cards. We had to our tribal show us that we're Indian cards. And so those guys started coming in and providing those services in the Twin Cities here, which they'd never done that before. So that was pretty amazing to see. But just hearing the number of people that were detained and stopped, there's a lot more stories out there than people realized, how it did impact the community. And how we stepped up for each other, and then also provided a lot of mutual aid for other communities too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our businesses, our organizations were impacted as well. And so what are you hearing directly from businesses about how this is affecting their ability to operate and stay open even after the wind down of
for a lot of our businesses, it's been tough. Because again, like we were talking earlier, it's been slow for people to come back out into their normal routine, to go to places that they normally would go to shop, go to visit. And so businesses are impacted, and, we're trying everything to make people feel safe to come out. But I know that it's tough on our immigrant community. I know it's tough in the Native American community, to your point about just the impact this has had on them. And so, all we can do, I think at this point, is one, to be hopeful, because we have been resilient. Other cities have looked at how we've responded and using us as a model. It is not one in which we would like to have happen to us, but we just have to keep being hopeful, stay positive as we move along, and continue to help our neighbors as we move forward, and hopefully shop in Minneapolis when you're able to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what has this meant for the health and well-being of city staff and first responders?
This has been very taxing on all of our departments. I know a lot of focus is usually on the impact on police, but remember, those calls came into 911. So we can't forget about our 911 dispatchers and call takers, because they are affected. We have people who, have definitely had to take leave. We've had folks where we make sure that they know what's available to them for their mental health and physical health. We have peer support. We have employee support programs that we want to make sure our employees know about. And so for us, it's really prioritizing mental health and well-being, because we need our first responders. We need all these folks when they show up to show up as the best version of themselves for our residents and our visitors.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So what's on the horizon for the Office of Community Safety and the city's community safety reform efforts? I know we only got like a minute left.
I know, so I'll be real quick. We're building the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. That should hopefully be up by the end of the year.
Is that the one that's going to house the 3rd prerecinct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Inspector Gomez is on my case
Southside
every
will
week.
Yeah.
But real quickly, just want to thank all of those residents who protested peacefully and got us out of this mess. Their peaceful protest was so important to how this surge ended. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, thank you so much for coming on my show tonight and all of this great information that you provided. And we didn't even get to all of the things that we were supposed to get to. So hopefully we can have you on again.
That will be great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you and have a great night.
You too.
Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in this episode of Minneapolis Air, American Indian Relations. We'll see you tomorrow. Ahoo, this is Robert Pilot. For Native relatives